Hello and welcome to today's episode of Platinum Talks Wealth. Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell changed gears in her television career when she realized the need to help women make sense of investing. She regularly hosts educational workshops to empower women and others to take charge of their financial future. Now, join your host, Platinum Wealth Management President Jennifer Rogers Markwell, as she leads us into the world of money memories, money infidelities, and how these can mold our relationship with our personal finances as adults. Let's dive into today's episode.
Hi, and thanks for joining us in the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. It's Jennifer Rogers Markwell, and I'm joined by Daphne Minks today. Thanks so much, Daphne, for making time.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
Of course. So I always ask the first question, the big one. Tell me all about you and why you do what you do.
Yes, gosh. Well, first, my path was not linear. I'm sort of in my, I guess you could call it third generation of careers at this point. I've always been an entrepreneur my whole life. I've had a few sporadic jobs, but for the most part, I've always blazed my own path. And so now, basically, in this third stage, I'm almost 50 now, a position where I'm able to do what I want to. And so I really put a lot of thought into that. I closed up a really, really profitable, wonderful entrepreneurial business or adventure, handed that off to someone else. So I thought, what do I want to do? I have this time. I bought a house in a ghost town. So I opened up a production company. It's something I've always wanted to do. And it's been really neat. I've had clients over the years in the entertainment industry, in executive protection. So it's really been neat because I can put together my entire circle. We can all sort of work together now, which has been like a dream of mine. So I'm able to get friends and former colleagues and all kinds of people involved in my business. And it's really neat. I'm just really enjoying this phase of my life, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many questions, right? First off, how the ghost town, want to hear more about that. But then also how did you get on this path to doing this? Was this something that you always wanted to do, or what kind of directed you here overall?
Yeah, I think it's something I've always wanted to do. When I think about like what was the very first thing I wanted to be when when you're a kid and you're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? TV creator, television series creator. I don't know why. I've always just really been drawn to that. And it's funny because I don't even watch a lot of TV. I like the idea of creating TV, but I'm not so much of a couch potato or whatever. I've always wanted to do that. I've always enjoyed music, playing any kind of music I can. Like I say, a lot of my social circle is in the entertainment business. So I've been entertainment adjacent for so long. And, it's like that burning passion inside of you where you're like, I want to do that. And so that's basically what I did. I got myself out of a relationship. I use that term loosely, that was not geared toward the lifestyle I wanted at this point in my life. And so I made those changes. I decided to really just kind of take hold of my life and do what I wanted to, which is, I think, beautiful for any woman, really, to
Good
be
for
able to
you.
do
Good for you. Well,
that.
where does the ghost town come in the mix then with all this?
Yeah, so I wanted a place that was safe, obviously. And I live in Southern California, so that's a tall order, a place where there's not crazy crime. And I also wanted space, and that's not, again, easy to come by. And so I was traveling, found this ghost town in Southern California. It's right between Phoenix and Palm Springs area. And I fell in love with it. There's 150 people here, and it's just wonderful. It's like trapped in time. I'm not going to tell any of your listeners where it is because I don't want anyone to know. I'm afraid others will find out, how great it is here. So yeah, basically I bought a house for ridiculously inexpensive, and I've been remodeling it. And again, it's just a beautiful thing, I think, for a woman to be able to do, just kind of remodel your house the way you want. There's not a lot of, when I say it's a ghost town, we're really out here. There's not a store for 45 minutes. And so when you want to take on a home repair project, you're spending a lot of time on YouTube figuring out how to do it because there's no workers coming out here. So it's been really a labor of love as well as kind of an exercise in resilience. And I guess my female war cry to some degree that I can do this because I'm doing it and it's really fun. Yeah.
When you're creating your own happiness and your own joy, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. That's exactly what it is. And I think my entire path has kind of led me here. Like I said, I've always done my own thing. I've always been my biggest supporter. And this was just something I felt really compelled to do, to just kind of strike out on my own and create a space, a safe space, a comfortable space, and a space where I'm able to generate income in a way that feels good and authentic for the first time probably in my whole life, which is just amazing. Yeah.
Good for you and how inspiring for others listening, right? Like that's I think
Yeah, do
a lot
it.
a
Do
lot
it,
of women's
girls. Do it.
dreams.
Yeah, and guys, everyone,
True.
just do it. Strike out on your own. Yeah,
Well, and then it's your own expectations. You're putting them on yourself. It's you, it's doing your thing.
exactly. And and I found I'm actually more motivated now than I was maybe in my previous career, where I was a strategist, a consultant. Now they call it a coach. That wasn't so much a word, but maybe 15 years ago. So that was kind of a newer thing. And that market changed. And I just found I was not motivated to get up in the morning and do anything. Yeah, not do anything. That's a far cry, but do anything outside of what I needed to get done. And since I've moved out here, I've, like I said, I've gotten rid of some businesses that were kind of bogging me down. I delegated my responsibilities well, I think. And I get up now with this renewed sense of what do you want to do today? I've got this really long list of things to do, and every single thing on that list excites me, which is a whole new world.
That's
It's an
cool. I mean, that
entirely
sounds
new
like the
world. Yeah,
American dream, right? The American dream of you creating it your path as you choose.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I feel very fortunate. I feel very fortunate when I get up in my own space and I'm doing my own thing. So it's a blessing. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, one thing we talk about here on the podcast, amongst lots of other things, are money memories. What's a money
Yes.
memory that you have from childhood or younger years that you helped mold your relationship to money as an adult?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I would have to say I left home at a young age and I lived in a very rural part of the South, the southern United States. And the Appalachian region, it was right near the Appalachian region. So I saw a lot of poverty, and I mean real poverty. I mean, very people that worked their fingers to the bone and saw very little return, very little job opportunity. Financial literacy was, I mean, not a thing, especially for women. The financial mindset for women in that area at that time, this was, 90s, was you get married and you hope for the best, and that scared me to death. I did not want that life. No offense to anyone, if that worked out, that's what you wanted, that's great. I knew for myself I was not going to be satisfied with just getting married and just doing that, just living there, working at whatever retail job or whatever it was that was available at the time. I knew education was going to be important. So I would say that's my money memory, is just sort of, I have very vivid memories of seeing my friends' parents coming home very tired, having
Mm.
worked all day. There being very little in the fridge. There's not a lot of choices. When you stayed for dinner, you knew that that was a very big deal because there wasn't really enough food to go around. And that burned into my mind of the importance of financial literacy, the importance of entrepreneurship. There's when you get that paycheck, that's what you're getting. There's nothing else. And I didn't like that idea that there was a cap, every week there is a cap, so yeah, I guess in answer to your question, that would be my money memory, is just seeing people just working so hard and still living in just abject poverty and very little opportunity. And so I knew I had to create those opportunities in order to claw on bended knee to get out of that, situation. And I did. And I really think that helped me.
You are listening to the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
Hey, it's Jennifer. I wanted to take a quick break to remind you that you are worthy to have a seat at the table when it comes to money and your finances. We, both me and my team at Platinum Wealth Management, want to meet you where you are, whether you're starting out, starting over, or have been investing for years. Reach out to us at platinumwealth.net or call us at 775 717 0001. We'd be honored to help.
And now, back to the podcast.
Uh, to know the importance of learning about money, how to save, simple things like the difference between a credit union and a bank. That was a foreign idea to most people in my circle, growing up. So yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but
No, you did
but
beautifully. And I feel like
I
so inspiring too, because for me, I was brought up grandparents, depression kids, right? Paycheck. I mean, they were savers, but it was paycheck to paycheck, getting food on the table, and that's how they grew up. But for you to kind of go out on your own and have this entrepreneurial spirit, if you will, where did you see that anywhere? Or was that something that you were just like on fire and like moving forward with? Because I feel like when you're not seeing it, sometimes it's hard to imagine it for yourself as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people said I was crazy. I hate to use that term, but it's like, oh, big dreams. Yeah, sure. So I really think it was something maybe I was born with because like I said,
Mhm.
I wanted to I wanted to create TV shows at such a young age. Like I remember, I had crayons and this little like notepad and I had this little script, what I thought was a script, that I had written and I showed it to my grandmother, and I would love to say she was like, "Oh, go for it," but she didn't. It was like, "Well, that's cute, but that's not realistic." And I don't know. I maybe it's that rebellious spirit I was just sort of born with. I'm not sure, to be honest, but I just kind of knew looking around, you're gonna have to make it on your own, girl. Like you're gonna have to create your own breaks. There's nobody coming to save you. So I can't really say
Ooh.
where it came from specifically. I just knew, I think inherently, nobody's coming to save you. You're gonna have to do this on your own.
You're there to save
Yeah.
yourself, right? So similar, parallel, very different, but similar. I would create microphones out of foil and I would interview people because I worked in television in news for 15
Yes.
years. And so I remember being little and like with my little tinfoil mic, talking to people and interviewing people, in my own imagination. And
Yeah.
here I was from blue collar family, depression kids, right? And they were like, you are out of the loop a little bit compared to like the rest of
Yeah.
the family. So for me, I had a weird little spark there too. Not weird, but
Yeah. I
different
know what you mean.
comparably to
Yeah.
them, a different spark. And I feel like I kind of stayed in my lane for a while. And then, I mean, my husband, entrepreneurial spirit, definitely gave me the nudge to create my own wealth management firm. But I never saw that either. I never saw it from anyone around me or family members or anything. It was just a little spark that I had inside of me.
Yeah, I think that's where it has to come from, really. I mean, I don't even know. I think maybe even if you've, and I don't know because I didn't grow up in a family where there was a lot of entrepreneurs or anything, but I don't know. I mean, maybe even if you did grow up around that, you have to have that sort of spark, that something
True.
inside of you
Yeah.
to make you want to get out there and just forge your own path.
Yeah. Yeah. Super inspiring. Well,
Thanks.
another thing we talk through are financial infidelities, which I always tease is kind of a big, scary, hairy conversation for some folks, and it means different things to different individuals as well. What's a financial infidelity that you've experienced or that you've witnessed that you think others could learn from?
Uh, I tell you, I mentioned it at the beginning. About getting out of relationships that just didn't serve me anymore. And financial abuse, I didn't know, even as quote learned as I am, I did not know that there was such a thing. I really didn't. And I don't think a lot of people, especially women, I don't mean to keep, beating on that women, sort of thing, but we're not taught that. At least my age group. We were not really taught about if someone is mismanaging funds in your home, that can be a form of abuse. I was in two of them, two relationships actually back to back until I learned. Um, that when you are giving everything you have to a relationship and that money is just being siphoned out, that's not okay. That's not okay.
To put it
And it took me
mildly.
a
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it's actually a crime in other countries. And thankfully we're catching up here in the US, but it's taking a while. That's just not something that was even recognized even in divorce proceedings, where it's like just I'll get a little personal here. The person I was with for many years made plenty of money, six figures plus, but we had no money. We were living, I mean, very much almost day to day. I mean, it was like, paying little bits of the credit card just to like get gas. When there's two people making wonderful money, no reason that you cannot be living very well off of this. And the money was just going out, just going out, going out. I didn't understand that that's not sticking out a marriage. I did not know that. I now that I've learned about what financial abuse is, I understand, you know, it's difficult to even put into words when you go to a divorce proceeding and they say, well, this is how much money is there. Right. Well, there's three times that amount in debt. So where does that, you know what I'm saying? How do you
Yeah.
balance that? And that makes it very difficult when you're trying to get legal resources and you don't have enough money to buy groceries, but on paper, y'all are making, X amount of dollars. That's not something a lot of people understand, but you drive a Mercedes. That's great, but I can't buy groceries this month because someone else is siphoning everything and then some out the door. And you can't get ahead like that. And so I guess in a long answer, that's what I would like to impart as far as a financial infidelity is educate yourself. If you can't figure out where the money's going, there's a problem. You need to investigate that. It's not love. That's not love. If someone, financial wellness is just as important as physical wellness, as emotional wellness. And I think that
Absolutely.
that's something that a lot of people, and I hate to keep saying women, but mostly women, I think don't understand that. We weren't, given that opportunity to learn that. We really weren't. And that's my big spiel, I guess. For
No, thank
anyone
you.
listening.
Thank you for being
Yeah,
open to share that and being vulnerable to share that, quite frankly. Because I do agree with you wholeheartedly. I feel like, I mean, money was one of those kind of misnomer taboo subjects you don't talk about. And especially back in the day, being raised by depression kids, right? You absolutely didn't talk about that. You didn't talk
yeah,
about money at all. So there's so many things I feel like women, truly women too, that are affected by this because those
yeah,
conversations were not conversations, right? It was kind of a
yeah,
man's world for a long time when it came to finances and budgeting and investments and strategies. Whereas now I feel like this is why the podcast I think is so important was to be able to share these stories so we could learn from one another. But there's the wealth transfer. Money is coming into
yeah.
women more than ever it has before in the past. Like women are making more money, women are successful in their career paths. People are passing away. There's inheritance, family money flowing in. I mean, there's a lot of different facets to this. But this is, I think, the time where women especially need to empower themselves that much more for financial literacy and what they're doing, what their path is, and really have a clear idea of, back to your original point, of where their money is or where it's going.
Exactly, exactly. I think it's so important that I think I think we have a stigma that we're still fighting against, and that is if a woman cares about money, she's a gold digger. Or, well, if you loved me, you wouldn't care about my credit score. Ooh, some people are probably going to be upset at me when I say this, but a credit score has a lot to do with responsibility and the decision making skills that someone has, their emotional intelligence. That's not just well, he just, or she, whoever doesn't know how to spend money. That's a red flag. That's a
Yeah.
red flag. It really speaks to me if you can't pay your bills on time out of poor choices, I don't know if we're going to work. And that's okay for women to say that. That doesn't make you a gold digger or any of these horrible words that have been attributed to financially sound thinking human beings. That does not make you a bad person. That makes you a smart person.
No, no. And to piggyback on that too, I had a guest that talked about, financial intimacy, right? We're intimate in so many different realms when you're dating someone, right? And many times they don't always go in order. Whatever your order is could be very different compared to the social norms, whatever that is, right? No judgment. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, you're talking about or doing other things that may have a priority to you. But I think financial intimacy should be on the top of the scale, should be a early on
absolutely.
conversation to make sure you're on the same page when it comes to all of the things.
Oh, absolutely. Had I had that conversation, I would have saved 10 years of my life. Honestly, probably the first date, I would have been like, ooh, ooh, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to work, and of course I'm, being humorous, but only to some degree. I think if that
Yeah.
conversation is opened up fairly early on what are our expectations in a relationship financially, that really saves us all a lot of time and heartache, doesn't it? It really
Totally
does.
agree. And the mere fact if we can listen and learn from one another, I know it's always easier said than done. But if people can pull nuggets from one another and realize, oh wow, okay, I heard that. I have a flag up. I've heard this story unfold to someone else around me. If we can lift and support each other along the way, especially as women, I mean, just think of what a better place the world will be. I know I'm a little Pollyanna on that, but no,
No,
truly,
but
if we
it's
can lift each
true.
other and learn from one another, that's fantastic.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely. I think that's why shows like yours are so important. I love hearing women empowering other women, especially in the financial space, because I don't think we really do that enough. I feel very passionately about that.
Me too. Me too. Well, as we start to wrap the conversation, I always like to ask also, what are tips and or tricks that you use to utilize money differently in your own home?
Wow, I think I've heard it on your show several times, but I want to reiterate apps that help you shop smarter, cash back, things like that, using credit cards wisely, like ones that have reward points, things like that. I know that's probably beaten to death, but it is so true. It really is. It's a great way, I would say, anyone getting started, especially on their, financial journey, that's a great way to start. Is you sign up, maybe for some of these little cashback things, or you take your credit card rewards and you maybe put those into something that's gaining some interest, or a savings account, something like that. That money is going to very quickly grow, and you don't even realize it. You're just putting away small amounts just with little things you're saving from everyday small purchases. It doesn't sound like much, but if you're just getting started, I think that is so key. That's something that I really like to tell the youngsters that I speak with. Is it sounds like, just pennies add up, and it's a great way to get started. And then you can start talking about, getting into some products and some, financial advisors and things like that are going to help you maximize all of that. But I think it's a great place to start for beginners, is just to save up those pennies with all your little cash backs and your rewards and all your little things. Take advantage of that stuff. Absolutely. Don't leave it on the
Yeah.
table.
I think so. Pennies become dollars, right? Dollars
Yes,
become
I
more.
do.
Like it keeps adding up. And one thing that I always say as a disclaimer anytime we throw out credit cards is be disciplined. Pay it off, right? If there's an
Oh,
interest rate
oh,
associated
yeah.
with it, I feel like so many people get like done a little dirty because it's like 21% they're paying interest on a pair of socks that they bought that they should have paid off every month, right? Whatever that is.
It's so true. Absolutely. I could not agree more. When I speak of credit, I speak of paying that sucker off as soon as possible.
Every month, preferably down to a
Every
zero balance.
month.
Yeah.
Yes, every month. Absolutely. So thank you for interjecting that. Yes, when I say use your rewards, I'm not saying carry a balance, y'all.
Yeah, and I think most people know that, but again, it's my 2 cents of my job of like not putting it out there. I need to. So just in case.
Yeah. Just in case for anyone out there who's listening. Exactly. But yeah, that
Yeah.
would be my advice. Start small. Little things like that are exactly how I got to where I am now. I started out small. I had very tiny little savings account that I would kind of, squirrel away money. And very quickly that became enough where I was able to start speaking about my financial wellness with an advisor. And that's just how it starts. The little tiny steps will lead to very big changes very quickly.
And then it snowballs from there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely right. Yes.
Good. Well, thank you so much for making time to chat today. I so
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thanks. It was a great time. I enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, me too. And those of you listening and or watching, hopefully you'll join us on the next Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth, please subscribe and share. For more information about Jennifer Rogers Markwell or Platinum Wealth Management, please visit www.platinumwealth.net. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Platinum Wealth Management.